My mom told me when I was in the hospital after having given birth to me, I was very observant around the room. When I turned 1, I was speaking full sentences. And my mom told me, I said, well, actually, at 1, the earliest memory I can remember of music was this song called Jesus Dropped the Charges. And my grandmother, maybe she ingrained this method of listening to music onto me. She would listen to that song every day like it was the first time she'd ever heard it. When I was a kid, my dad had a DJ set in the house, and he would, every Sunday, or, one point of the week, I knew I wasn't in school, so it had to be the weekend, he would turn the DJ set on, or turn the turntables on and play loud music. Him and my mom would just vibe. Even before that, I remember my grandma. I lived with my grandmother when I was up to 3, and I can still remember the memory of my dad, me, my mom, my grandmother, my sister, and whoever else in the basement of my grandmother's house, listening to music and just dancing and enjoying ourselves. And this was before I was 3. I remember my first song I ever made was called Otteries. That's not even a real word, but it was just like, Otteries. Otteries. I don't know what that means, but I still remember that. I remember when I got older, my dad had bought me a keyboard. Now, go to school, and nobody really cared for me. I was a suburban black girl full of white kids and self-hating black kids. Well, black boys at least. And I would come home, and we had this thing called the NJ Ask, and they would do an assembly. So I made a song for the assembly, and it was the first song I ever played on a keyboard. And I used to make music on the keyboard all the time. I had a guitar. I never learned how to play it, but I really wanted an electric guitar. But more importantly, deeper than all of that, when I was a kid, I didn't feel desired by anybody. I didn't feel as though anyone wanted to be around me. So I would come home every day and I would make up my own whole reality. And I did that for years. Meanwhile, my whole life, I've adjusted to just about every circumstance that I could have imagined myself in. When I was a kid, I didn't really have it that much, but middle school, I picked my friend group. I'll never forget. I brought about 5 girls around each other. Respectfully, some of them were already hanging out, but for the most part, I brought 5 girls around each other, and we became our little group in middle school. And we'd have fallouts and whatever silly middle school shit, but we, for the most part, I made my friend group. Everywhere that I've ever been, I always brought people around each other. And the older I got, the more impactful I started to see that I was on people that I was around. When I think about moving to California at 19, the first week there, well, not even my first day there, the people that I was around were so intrigued to know, about me. And I was just sitting there, like I wasn't even, I guess being yourself really does make people want to know more, because you can, especially being a new person somewhere, you can be anybody you want. But I decided to be myself, and I was pretty nervous, but I was still, me. And I didn't try to act like I was, I was around people with, money and clout. I didn't try to act like, oh yeah, I have this business in Turks and Caicos, and on the weekends I'm golfing with Jay-Z. I was myself. And throughout that week, I made an impression on the people that I was around. And then when I moved to California, I made sure that everyone who I was around knew who I was, and they enjoyed me. And I hung out with a lot of people that I never thought I would, even be around. And the older I get, the more I realize how important I am to this life, and how important it is to remember when we became, obviously ourselves. We don't know who we are until we learn. So outside sources and rigmarole and noise can get in and subconsciously influence you. But how can I go by what anyone else says when I can't name one person that I know who traveled 6 hours a day to get to and from a job, on buses and trains, to get out of homelessness at 20 years old? My mom told me when I moved to California, she was a little bit, baffled, and I was leaving the nest on short notice. Like, I went to California for a week, and the person who I was with, they told me that I could move in if I got a job. So I left for a week, and I came back with a job. So it was pretty short notice, but she couldn't stop me because I was 19. And even the people, in Jersey that I told, like, yeah, I'm going to California, people were like, oh, okay, cool. And then when I left, they're like, wow, you actually went? Because people are so used to, people who say things that they're going to do and they don't do them. I've always been that person that said I was going to do something and then I did it. I've always been the therapy friend. I've always been the person where if it's my judgment, they know it's coming from a good place and they know it's coming from an honest place. So that means I need to be able to trust myself as well. And how can I be able to move along and do all the things that everyone else does when I have always been the blueprint of what to do? When I was in California in 2022, I took my $800, which is all I had, out of that girl's house and into the unknown. And I traveled city to city around California, doing Airbnbs every 2 weeks and getting further and further from my job in LA at DHL. And not one time did I sit and think, hey, this is really rough. I'm 20. I don't have any support. I had my mom to talk to every day, but she wasn't with me. So I was alone. And I didn't have like a proper, a family that I could call and tell them like, hey, like I need this to hold me over until I can get on my feet. And my mom helped me. My mom helped me as much as she could, the same way she does now. But I was more determined on getting out of the situation that I didn't think about any of that stuff. I didn't think about what I didn't have. I didn't think about what I was doing. I had to travel from Hacienda Heights to Los Angeles. That's 3 hours. My job started at 11. I was leaving the house around 7:40 to make sure that I got to work not only on time, but early. And I was always 30 minutes early. And it's just so funny how the further you live from a job, the earlier you get there. Because you know you have to leave so early because you live so far. But I genuinely had to leave as early as possible. I used to literally watch the sun go down going to work every day. And you would think traveling to work was the journey of the job. No, then you have to do the job and then you have to go home. 3 hours again. And I did it every day until I didn't have to. Because I had a friend who I was lucky enough, who cared about me enough to let me stay in her house while she moved back in with her mom. And I'm still grateful for her to this day, even though we don't talk. But regardless, what matters to me more is the fact that I not only knew that I would get out of that situation without having to go home or without having to do anything that involved, I don't know. I didn't have to do anything. I didn't have to subject myself to anything except, lack of sleep. But I made some of the best music I've ever made in that time period, going through that. And if I can put myself through something like that, because I could have went home, if I could put myself through something like that from January to May, because May 5th was the day that I moved in to her spot, why is it that I can't do something as drastic as that, work my ass off until I get what I want out of this life, which is to be a musician. It's not ideal or safe to do an Airbnb, a shared Airbnb in different towns of a state that you don't know for months. And somebody even said to me when I was doing that at my job, like, oh, you need to be careful. Somebody can be watching your route home. I didn't think about that once. I used to have to go to one of the most dangerous places to get home at one of those time periods. There was a situation with Zac Efron where he was in the same area, and I'm gonna put a picture of it because I don't remember exactly what it was called, but I didn't learn how sketchy it was until I heard about this situation with Zac Efron. And I subjected myself to so much dangerous shit because I knew that I wouldn't have to do it forever. And that as long as I keep my head straight, I'll get out of this situation no matter how. And the universe gave me what I deserved, which is an out. And I was in my friend's house for a year. And then I went to Atlanta. And I burned myself out there. Went broke. Ended up moving to South Carolina into one of the worst situations that I've ever lived through in my life. And now I'm in Pennsylvania. But if you would have told me in 2020 that I would be moving to California at 19 years old and I'm 18, I probably would have laughed in your face. I probably would have been like, yeah, that sounds good. I would love that. But yeah, no. So life has never dealt me with easy cards. Growing up black in a suburban area is already hard enough. They didn't even want to make friends with my mom at the PTOs. Then moving to Newark, trying to start a rap career and being shot down just because people don't like you because you got a smart mouth and you say things to make people back the fuck up or want to fight you, and usually it's the latter. And then you move into a place where nobody knows you at all and you make them love you. You set your reality in every situation. Everything that I've done, everywhere that I was at, was where I placed myself. Except when I got, whatever is unexpected, but regardless, I adapted to every situation thus far. So why would I then go on and do the safe thing that I've been doing for years is I've been traveling state to state, enjoying myself in these places, not realizing that I'm not doing anything for my music career. So what do I have to show for it? Well, I'm 23, which is still pretty young in my eyes. Not many people in my age range think so, but I'm not even pushing 30 yet. And if I want to see the life that I want, I can't play it safe anymore. There was a guy in California who pissed me off bad, and he made me really upset, and he told me, you don't want this bad enough because you're putting your foot in one direction and putting your foot in the other direction. And I got so mad at him, and I was like, bruh, bills this, and gotta eat that. And I had somewhere to stay. I had food. I had all these different things that I needed. And I didn't have the music career that I want. So working a job still to this day has not gotten me there. And I quit my job at Dave & Buster's. I was working there for a month, and that shit sucked. And I'm trust falling into the universe, because if I really want this, I have to get it. Nobody's going to give it to me. And if I want the universe to trust me and trust that I can do it, then I have to put myself in that position.